1.3.40. What is this? The scripture name Srimad Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared the Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless, sound representation of all Vedic knowledge and history. Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Lord Sri Krishna and is therefore non-different from him. I think it should be okay. List some of the qualifications mentioned for learning Srimad Bhagavatam. 44. I heard him with a rapt attention. One has to learn the Bhagavatam from the representative of Shukadeva Goswami and no one else, if one at all wants to see Lord Sri Krishna in the pages. So that's one qualification. Simple hearing is not all. One must realize the text with proper attention. That's another qualification. Attention. Both the points are here. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. So third qualification. From the right person, rapt attention, and pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. Pure in action, that's the fourth qualification. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Fifth qualification. Pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. So rapt attention from the right person with while being pure in mind, pure in action, and pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Identify the qualifications of the congratulatory in a meeting of learned men. 4.1. Elderly, learned leader of all rishis. He must be the leader of the house and an elderly man. He must be vastly learned also. Must be leader of the house and elderly man and vastly learned. Explain what personal realization does and does not mean. What it does not mean. Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. One must have full confidence in the previous acharya. And at the same time, one must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. Yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. List Shaunaka Rishi's questions to Srila Sutta Goswami in verses 1 to 12. Open front here. One to 12 questions from Shaunaka Rishi. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam. In what period and place was this first begun? And why was this taken up? From where did Krishna and Vyas, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? How was Srila Shukadev recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapur? How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage? It is said that Maharaj Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death? Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? How could he give up his mortal body, which was shelter for others? All of these. What principles can be inferred from the damsel's respective reactions to Srila Shukadeva Goswami and Srila Vyasadeva, and Shukadeva Goswami and Shukadev's dealings with householders? No particular verse here. We'll look at it from text 12. Dealings with householders, that also comes here. Shukadeva Goswami was accustomed to staying at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence. That was to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. No, it's not 12. What is that verse? 5. 5 and 8. What is the exact question? What principles can we infer from the damsel's respective reactions to Srila Shukadeva Goswami and Srila Vyasadeva? And Shukadev's dealings with the household. So what principles can we infer? Okay. Then I will go back through both the verses. Text 5. So one principle that can be derived is a householder has to distinguish between a male and female, otherwise he cannot be a householder. One should therefore attempt to know the distinction between body and soul without any distraction, and distinction between male and female. As long as such a distinction is there, one should not try to become a sannyasi like Shukadeva Goswami. At least theoretically, one must be convinced that a living entity is neither male nor female. The outward dress is made of matter by material nature to attract the opposite sex and thus keep one entangled in material existence. A liberated soul is above this perverted distinction. He does not distinguish between one living being and another. For him, they are all one and the same spirit. The perfection of the spiritual vision is the liberated stage, and Srila Shukadeva Goswami attained that stage. Srila Vyasadeva was also in the transcendental stage, but because he was in the householder's life, he did not pretend to be a liberated soul as a matter of custom. So this is one. And the principles to be derived from here are, from his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of God, it should learn that they have no business with householders, save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Such asking for alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Compare the different qualifications of the Brahmanas and the Parivrajakacharyas, 13. The Brahmanas are meant to administer some fruitive sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas, but the Parivrajakacharyas or learned preachers are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. As such, the Parivrajakacharyas are not always expert in pronouncing the Vedic mantras, which are practiced systematically by accent and meter by the Brahmanas, who are meant for administering Vedic rites. Yet it should not be considered that the Brahmanas are more important than the learned preachers. That means wandering preachers, sannyasis. They're one and different simultaneously because they're meant for the same end in different ways. How was Vyasadeva able to see the anomalies of this age? This is what he was able to see. The deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. That the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness.
Question is how, not the what.
How?
Through transcendental vision, somewhere it comes. I think in the purpose, translation itself.
What he could see with this transcendental vision. Being a liberated soul, the great sage Vyasadeva could see this by his transcendental vision.
Yeah. It's just question is how. It's not what. Unnecessarily, we should not enlarge the. Already this time the answer is quite big.
Only two sentences. As an
But questions are not asked like that. Questions are asked previously also. All the questions were asked. It was like long answer type question.
And what to do? We have these questions. We have to deal with it.
Yeah, so then you should give 2 hours for writing.
No problem. We can keep it from 7:30 to 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay with me? Everyone can come for Guru Puja. And then after Guru Puja, pray to Prabhupada to get good marks. And then afterwards, they can sit and write the exam. I don't have
But this question, particularly this question is how. It's not what did Vyasdev say. The question is, how was they able to see the anomalies of
I
the...
just hope that it's not an idiomatic usage. We will go by the literal meaning and we will take it to mean how and not what.
Yes.
As an astrologer can see the future fate of a man, or an astronomer can foretell the solar and lunar eclipses, liberated souls can foretell the future of all mankind by seeing through the scriptures. They can see the future on account of their sharp vision due to spiritual attainment. Okay, so that is how. Who are the greatest philanthropists? Well, the greatest philanthropists are those transcendentalists who represent the mission of Vyasa, Narada, Madhva, Chaitanya, Rupa, Saraswati, etc. The aim of the mission is one and the same, to deliver the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. List the sages to whom the various parts of the Vedas were entrusted. 21, 22. After the Vedas were divided into 4 divisions, Paila Rishi became the professor of the Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of the Samaveda, and Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda. The Sumantu Muni, Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda. And my father, Roma Harshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records. Okay, just give me 1 minute. And my father, Roma Harshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records. So, for Rig Veda, Paila Rishi. Samaveda, Jaimini Rishi. Yajurveda, Vaishampayana Rishi. Angira Rishi took charge of Atharva Veda. So, Atharva Veda, Angira Muni. Angira Rishi. Then for Itihasas Puranas, Roma Harshana Sutta. What is the reason for the one Veda being divided into many parts? Edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. The reasons for its divisions in many parts are explained herewith. Okay. This gives a clue. The seed of all knowledge, or the Veda, is not a subject matter which can be easily understood by the ordinary man. Okay, wait. The point is this. The Vedas are subjects which had to be explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord. The subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional quality of goodness. Persons who are in the modes of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas. The subject matter of the Veda, the ultimate goal is Krishna, but that is not understood in the mode of passion and ignorance. In Satyuga, they were in goodness, then gradually declined, and finally in the present age, mode of goodness is almost nil. And therefore, Vyasadeva mercifully divided the Vedas so that they may be practically followed by less intelligent persons in the modes of passion and ignorance.
Just one line, isn't it?
One line.
Yeah.
The subject matter of the Vedas is understood by persons with exceptional quality of goodness.
Oh, why to explain? The question is, what is the reason the Veda was divided? So we'll just write because it can be practically followed by less intelligent persons.
So what does that mean?
Less in the mode of passion and ignorance.
So
It will
what?
be automatic. See, if the question comes up 5 marks, then we'll have to explain. If question comes up 2 marks, then one line should be enough.
That you should ask the assessment coordinators for all these things, all these negotiations.
I think one of the assessment coordinator is hearing
So
the
you
class.
should work it out. You work it out. You work it out. Have a separate Zoom meeting, argue, debate, quarrel, whatever you all want to do, you do. Okay.
It depends on how much marks question possess.
Look, ideally, the question bank itself should contain the answer. That would be double spoon feeding. This is single spoon feeding.
I'm not. It's simple. If you want, if you are giving 1 hour, 2 marks question, then the answer should be based on that. If you are giving more time and as well as
don't force me to
question,
organize an answer bank.
I'm not telling you to organize answer bank. I'm just telling there should be a system.
Answer bank will be
no, I'm not telling
solution.
at all. I am completely opposed of the answer bank. But my point is, it should be made that the question will be long answer type or short answer type. It should be divided.
See, in my concept of assessment, knowledge, understanding, skills, and values. There are 4 aspects of education. So this closed book assessment is supposed to test knowledge only, not supposed to test knowledge and understanding. That is my view. But there is a view that has been infiltrating into the education circles in ISKCON that it should be a mixture of knowledge and understanding. For understanding, in my opinion, you should test it out through the essays. In the essays only, you find out whether the student has understood it. Skills and values is actually outside of the scope of this course. That is supposed to be tested by the individual spiritual masters of the members of ISKCON. So I think that an answer bank would be very, very useful because it's only knowledge. You just mug it up. Just mug it up and just put it. Test it. Pure memory recall. That's all. That's one aspect of education. If you don't memorize, then there's no meaning to, because you need to know certain key facts. So I am in favor of answer bank. If anybody becomes so frustrated that you require an answer bank, just let me know. Then we'll organize an answer bank team. Then we'll create an answer bank. That's all. It will be useful to you. It will be useful for other suffering students in the future also. So you can do some paropakar also. What is the meaning of Dvija Bandhuna? There should be Dvija hyphen Bandhuna, 25. Dvija Bandhu Nam, actually. Dvija Bandhu Nam. That's the actual word. Well, it means if the father and mother do not undertake the process of spiritual family planning or Garbhadan Samskar, and simply beget children out of passion only, their children are called Dvija Bandhus. See, if we have an answer bank, then we know exactly this is what you answer. You answer it fully, you get 100% of the marks allocated for that. You don't answer it fully, you get partial. That's all. Solves all controversies in one shot. What is the purpose of the Mahabharata? 25. The purpose of the Mahabharata is to administer the import of the Vedas. Full stop. That's all. You get marks for that. I'll become very mark conscious now. Why was Vyasadeva not satisfied? 26 to 32. Oh, twice born Brahmana. Still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Okay, the answer is actually here in 31. Because I did not specifically point out the devotion service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. This is the answer. Analogy. While the conditioned soul does dreams about spiritual engagements, the liberated soul is awake. Similarly, the engagement of a conditioned soul appears to be a dream for the liberated soul. What's all this? Generally, I don't look. I only look at the discussion topics. The glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Why it begins with text 40?
In Unit 1, it was covering up to only text 39 of the third chapter. So therefore, it begins with text 40. Unit 2. They have divided, I don't know how, but
The glories of the Bhagavatam, 3.40 to 44. Oh. Now I understand. I understand. I understand. The Srimad Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God. And it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great Emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Question here. It's a question about open book assessment. It has to be explained in one's own words. But while preaching acharyas say you should not change anything, then why need to do like that? That's because you need to prove to us that you have understood what the acharyas have said. Prabhupada also would have his disciples give Bhagavatam classes in his own presence, and he would sit and monitor. So this is like that. Testing whether we have understood. The meaning of personal realization, 4.1. I think we saw this. But it is important enough to check it out. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. And what it does not mean, one should not out of vanity attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. One must have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time, one must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. Being a householder, Vyasa did not pretend to be a liberated soul. Interesting point. Srila Vyasadeva was also in the transcendental stage, but because he was in the householder's life, he did not pretend to be a liberated soul as a matter of custom, because householders cannot function like liberated souls. Householders should not try to act like sannyasis and all that. A preacher has no business with householders except to enlighten them. Good points. Very good points. Shukadeva Goswami is an ideal preacher established in the transcendental position. From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of God, should learn that they have no business with householders, save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Such asking for alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Because Parikshit was a pious king, his kingdom was full of prosperity, as well as a shelter for all, where no slaughterhouses were allowed. 11 and 12. Maharaj Parikshit was a pious king. He conquered his enemies, and therefore the kingdom was full of prosperity. There was enough milk, grains, and metals, and all the rivers and mountains were full of potency. So materially, everything was satisfactory. A devotee of the Lord automatically has all good qualifications, and the emperor was a typical example of this. He was always busy in the welfare work of the public, not only for this life, but also for the next. He would not allow slaughterhouses or killing of cows. Because he was a devotee of the Lord, he knew perfectly well how to conduct his administration for everyone's happiness, men, animals, plants, and all living creatures. The king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Under the administration of such a representative king, the kingdom is full of opulence. There are ample food grains, milk, fruit, and vegetables, so that the human beings as well as the animals can eat sumptuously and to their heart's content. If all living beings are satisfied with food and shelter and obey the prescribed rules, there cannot be any disturbance between one living being and another. Emperor Parikshit was a worthy king, and therefore all were happy during his reign. Different qualifications of the Brahmanas and the Parivrajik Acharyas. We saw this. The Brahmanas, they're meant to administer karma. Parivrajik Acharya is meant to disseminate jnana. Especially transcendental knowledge that pushes one towards pure devotion. Those. Division of the Vedas. We saw this. No one can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas. 23. The original source of knowledge is the Vedas. There are no branches of knowledge, either mundane or transcendental, which do not belong to the original text of the Vedas. They have simply been developed into different branches. Dvijabandhu, again spelling mistake, should be Dvija-bandhu without a dash above the U, are born in higher caste but aren't qualified like their forefathers. Where is Dvijabandhu here in 25? Am I in the right place? Or it is? It's here. So those who are not born out of Garbhadan Samskar from parents who maintain celibacy otherwise, they are the ones who are Dvijabandhus. They are certainly not as intelligent as children of the regular twice-born families. The Dvijabandhus are classified with the Shudras and the women class, who are by nature less intelligent, which means that they do not undergo any samskara, save and except the ceremony of marriage. Look at this external appearance and demeanor. Four means what? Next chapter, text 4. Is it next chapter?
This is next chapter.
No. No. Must be. See, text 4 of the same chapter that talks about Shukadeva Goswami's appearance. It's not right. External appearance and demeanor. The demeanor is here. External appearance is what? He appeared like an ignorant person. He remained always alert, not to be trapped by the illusory energy. The liberated soul is completely indifferent to matter. The liberated soul is always engaged in the progressive path of spiritual attainment. The liberated soul is awake. The engagement of a conditioned soul appears to be a dream for the liberated soul. His attention is always alert in self-realization. The liberated soul is completely indifferent to matter. Overlapping of the 28th round of the 4 millenniums. This is caused due to Krishna's appearance. In that particular millennium, Lord Shri Krishna also descends, and because of this, there was some particular alteration. Anomalies in this age seen by Vyasadeva, 16 to 18. Okay, I'll take it up from here itself. 16, 17, 18. The anomalies were due to the unseen force of time. In Kali Yuga, the people in general are too much interested in matter which is temporary. Because of ignorance, they are unable to evaluate the assets of life and be enlightened in spiritual knowledge. So he saw the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He saw that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life, would be impatient due to lack of goodness. So all matter is decayed in due course of time. The power of all material objects deteriorates by the influence of time. Duration of the material body of the people in general is much reduced. Memory is also reduced. Action of matter also has not much incentive. The land does not produce food grains in the same proportions. The cow does not give as much milk. The productions of vegetables and fruits is also less. Therefore, they do not have sumptuous, nourishing food. Therefore, the duration of life is reduced. Memory is short. Intelligence is meager. Mutual dealings are full of hypocrisy and so on. Greatest philanthropists represent mission of Vyasa, Narada, Madhva, etc. 18. The unfortunate men of this age are always reluctant to give a reception to the transcendentalists who are representatives of Srila Vyasadeva. And yet these selfless workers are always busy in planning something which may help everyone in all statuses and orders of life, in order to deliver the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. Persons empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can initiate others into the transcendental loving service of the Lord. What? This is the wrong verse number. No, it is the right verse number. The Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It is the first book of spiritual values as the Upanishads are, so they are on the same platform. The Vedanta philosophy is a subject matter for study by the spiritual graduates. That is the next step, Vedanta Sutra, Vedanta Darshan. Only the postgraduate spiritual student can enter into the spiritual or devotion service of the Lord. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. It is a great science, and the great professor is the Lord himself in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And persons who are empowered by him can initiate others in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, because they know this order. Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Sutra, Srimad Bhagavatam. Chapter 5. List further reasons for Vyasadev's dissatisfaction, 2 to 9. These are not actually further reasons for his dissatisfaction. What is the question? Further reasons for Vyasadev's dissatisfaction. Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? Wait, what's it? Ordinary men with a poor fund of knowledge identify the body or the mind as a self. One cannot be cheerful by nature unless one is factually seated in self-realization, which is transcendental to the material body and mind. This is one point. And he was dissatisfied despite presenting Mahabharata. So he was not dissatisfied due to lack of sufficient knowledge, or the Vedanta Sutra, Brahma Sutra. We have hardly broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So this is a deeper reason. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described to such an extent the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Give the English meaning of Tad Vayasam Tirtham 10. Tad Vayasam Tirtham. That is a place of pilgrimage for crows. A place of pilgrimage for crows. Where do the all perfect persons take pleasure? The all perfect persons are the swan-like persons. Literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramahamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. That's the right answer. What is the meaning of the phrase Janatagha Viplavaha? 11. Janata Agha Viplavaha. Revolution in the impious lives of this misdirected civilization. It's a revolution in the sinful life of the people in general. What is the main point of the verse and purport for text 12? What is there? Self-realization without a conception of the personality of Godhead does not look well, and fruitive activities, when they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord, is useless. That's all. Ordinary fruitive work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of devotional service, is useless. Similarly, speculation of the impossible Brahman is also condemned. fruitive work is meant to be made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. Otherwise, it is useless. Give the English meaning of the phrase amoghadrik. What was that? 15. Amoghadrik. What is that? The perfect seer. Your vision is completely perfect. As stressed by Narada in verse 14. What is the defect in the Vedic literature compiled by Vyasa? 14. In his various Puranas, okay, two different points here. First point is this. Vyasadeva has described transcendental realization by fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, mystic power, and devotion service. Karma, Jnana, Yoga, and Bhakti. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. These problems don't exist in Srimad Bhagavatam. In verse 15, what is the meaning of jugupsitam and in the purport? Verily condemned. This is verily condemned. Okay, that's enough. The short answer question. Meaning of jugupsitam is that and in the purport.
Question is incomplete actually. It should be just what is the meaning of jugupsitam and not and in the purport. What does it mean?
Okay, in the purport, what would be the meaning of jugupsitam?
I think I did not see any such thing.
This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narada. Who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relation with the Lord and thus surrender unto him without delay. Okay, we'll just keep that. What does Srila Prabhupada mean by the compromising spirit of Vyasadeva?
It should be this in the purport. What does Srila Prabhupada mean by the compromising spirit of Vyasadeva? The question half part remained in the previous question.
So what is the compromising spirit of Vyasadeva?
That is described before. Where it is, means in this compromising spirit before that it has been described.
What is like the Mahabharata, there are topics on transcendental subjects along with material topics. But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic. namely the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the compromising spirit of Vyasadeva. In verse 17, explain the meaning of Kovartha apto bhajatam swadharmataha. These are all very dangerous words to put in short answer question, no? Explain. And you don't know how much to explain.
We'll explain according to the mark. I mean, if the question is 2 marks, we'll explain according to 2 marks. If 5 marks, we'll explain according to 5 marks.
So what?
If
One line,
10 marks.
one line per mark? Is that the formula?
No, you had the formula earlier, 20 to 50 words, 2 marks. 100 words, some 5 or 10 marks, something like that.
I'm telling you a simple
20 to
solution.
30 words, 2
Simple
marks,
solution.
yeah.
Let me call for volunteers to help prepare an answer bank. Solve this at the root. Solve it. That's all. Let's create an answer bank. Whoever helps participate in it will also naturally get good marks because they would have written it, they would have read it, they would have thought about it. Somapati Gauranga Prabhu is very enthusiastic to help, so I'll enlist him for that. If anybody else wants to volunteer, that will be useful for you also, whoever is volunteering. Kovarthaapto bhajatam swadharmataha. What interest is obtained by a non-devotee while engaging in occupational service? On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. How does a devotee not undergo material existence like others? Even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, fruity workers, etc. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. Short answer question, that's enough. For essay, we'll have to add more points. Devotee is reformed by chastisement directed by the Lord himself. How can one engage one's gross body in the service of the Lord? 27. The gross body should be engaged in acts of rendering service to the Lord, as in bringing water, cleansing the temple, or making obeisances, etc. The path of Archana, or worshipping the Lord in the temple, involves engaging one's gross body in the service of the Lord. List the qualifications of a disciple as exemplified by Sri Narada. 29. I was very much attached to those sages. That's one. I was gentle in behavior. That's two. Done. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. That's three. I had subjugated the senses. That's four. I was strictly following them with body and mind. That's five. Yes, it matches what's written in the purport. 14. What is the most confidential part of knowledge? 30, 31. The most confidential part of knowledge is knowledge of devotional service, which is far, far above knowledge of impersonal Brahman. Pure devotional service is called the most confidential knowledge. It was imparted to Brahma, Arjuna, Uddhava, etc. Explain the Karma Yoga process within Bhakti Yoga. ये क्या है?
Questions would be, what are the activities are performed in Bhakti Yoga? Karma, what are the karma performed? Karma in the sense just actions or activities.
(32 to 36), right? Dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. When all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work. While performing duties according to, okay, when work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord, whatever work is done here is called Bhakti Yoga or transcendental loving service to the Lord. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. That means knowledge arises naturally. While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities. What? Analogies. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Despite all decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose is considered decoration of a dead body. These poetry are considered decorations of a dead body. The expert physician should not make any compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not at all take. Similarly, those in the devotional line need not be compromised by regulated performances of fruitive activities. Milk preparation sometimes causes disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk converted into curd and mixed with some other remedial ingredients cures such disorders. Similarly, the material conception of a thing is at once changed as soon as it is put into the service of the Lord. Draw general principles from Vyasadev's dissatisfaction. First of all, it should start with 31. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to the perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. So the principle that we can gather from this is that if we do not engage in that kind of devotional service, which is pleasing to the Supreme Lord and the perfect pure devotees of the Lord, then we will be dissatisfied. Then next chapter. Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? Are you presenting satisfaction of the body or satisfaction of the mind as being some kind of self-realization? This is despite the great scholarship of Vyasadeva, who could write an extremely long work and an extremely brief work on the subject of the Vedic on the subject of the Vedas. You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So Narada Muni confirms what Vyasadeva had suspected. Although great sage, you have very broadly described four principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Non-devotional literature is a place of pilgrimage for crows. Prabhupada does write extensively about this. Why did I come here? How did it take me here? The crows, okay. The fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and women and places for gross sense pleasure. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of the crows categories are literatures containing refuse remnants of sensuous topics. They're generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They're full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject is considered decoration of a dead body. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. So these literatures, they are in Rajoguna and Tamoguna, they cannot help in the development of the spiritual urge. And therefore the swan-like souls do not take pleasure in them. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, politicians, who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure, all are dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhara, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters. Narada condemns Vyasa's compromising spirit. 14 to 15. So whatever you write, giving people a conception that there are so many demigods who are all possessing independent powers and independent existences, then that will simply make everyone puzzled and disturbed. It means that they will not be able to find out what is the real path of self-realization. I will say this is a constant problem in Sanatan Dharma. It is a Sanatan problem in Sanatan Dharma because they are very intentionally written in that manner. The Shruti itself is like that, and the non-defective Smriti given by acharyas like Vyasadeva, they reflect that. But if one is interested in experiencing the highest satisfaction of the self, he will consider this arrangement to be problematic. Because if one is fully ready to hear reality, then if he's interested in Vastava Vastu, then he will not like this confused presentation. The confused presentation is for those who want a confused presentation. just to attract them. But Srimad Bhagavatam is not a confused presentation. It is for those who have become spiritually mature over lifetimes or by receiving Krishna's mercy. It is for them. Narada Dev is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva. And thus he is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else. And no one else, because he is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. The most defective part of worshipping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism, ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the progress of the principles of the Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for self-realization in relation with the personality of God and by devotion, service, and transcendental love. The diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of the selection of object. No gain in non-devotional occupational duties. Happiness comes as distant. 17 and 18. Why 17? Should be 18. Look at this. No. Here. The philosophically inclined person must not be tempted by such changeable positions, whether it is from Brahmaloka or Patala or anything in between. He should try to get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world, either in this or that planet. Miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life. And they are obtained in Brahmaloka and in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life of the demigods and also in the life of the dogs and hogs. The miseries and mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality. But no one is free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Similarly, everyone has his destined happiness also. No one can get more or less of the things simply by personal endeavors. Even if they are obtained, they can be lost again. One should not therefore waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to go back to God. That should be the mission of everyone's life. As the milk product curd, what is curd here? Cheese.
Here, no, yogurt.
Yogurt.
British English.
Yeah, this is British English.
British
In
English.
India also use curd, following British.
As the milk product curd or yogurt can cure milk indulgence, so service saturated with devotion to the Lord can cure the reactions of ordinary service. Ordinary service means material activities. The threefold miseries of material existence cannot be mitigated simply by material activities. Such activities have to be spiritualized. Just as by fire, iron is made red hot, and thereby the action of fire begins. Similarly, the material conception of a thing is at once changed as soon as it is put into the service of the Lord. That is the secret of spiritual success. We should not try to lord it over the material nature, nor should we reject material things. So, bhoga is one problem, tyaga is another problem. The best way to make the best use of a bad bargain is to use everything in relation with the supreme spiritual being. That is the way to treat our material disease and elevate ourselves to the spiritual plane, where there is no misery, no lamentation, no fear. When everything is just employed in the service of the Lord, we can experience that there's nothing except the Supreme Brahman. Clear vision required to do welfare activities. 13. What is the answer to this? Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in true perspective. Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service, and determined to deliver the fallen souls rotting in material existence. What is the answer to this question? Is it a question?
Topic. It is discussion topic.
It's just a discussion point. In other words, one should be capable of realizing all this. Okay. Narada serving Bhaktivedantas shows results of serving pure devotees, 23 to 25. From the personal example of Sri Narada Muni in his previous birth, it is clear that the service of the Lord begins with the service of the Lord's bona fide servants. By service of the bona fide spiritual master, the Lord consents to reveal himself in proportion to the service rendered. The whole cosmic creation becomes at once identical with the Lord as soon as service in relation with the Lord is rendered under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. What's the other result? So dharma eva atmaruchi prajayate. So by serving them, he became purified in heart. Vishuddha Chetasaha indicates that his mind became purified. And at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. The boy became infected with their qualities of purity by their association and by eating once the remnants of the foodstuff taken by them. There are many things which hinder one from rendering devotional service, but by the association of pure devotees, all these obstacles are removed. The neophyte devotee becomes practically enriched with the transcendental qualities of the pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of God, its name, fame, quality, pastimes, etc. And therefore, a pure devotee is no longer attracted by material activities. Then that way one can have nishtha, ruchi, asakti, bhava, prema, just by association. Qualifications of a disciple exemplified by Sri Narada, 29. You must always seek the association of pure devotees. Should not be misled by a pseudo devotee. He himself must be plain and gentle to receive the instructions. Should be a completely surrendered soul unto the personality of Godhead. You should know the personality of Godhead as the supreme proprietor and all others as his servitors. He should faithfully serve the pure devotee, should be very much obedient and strictly follow the instructions. Any of this is missing, then it'll not work. Okay, this will continue from tomorrow. Revolution in Empire's Lives of Misdirected Civilization, 11. Okay, we'll stop with that. Anshakalpatarubhyasya kripasindeभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.